Hello everybody, this is Leah from the Oppenheimer Ranch Project, and I wanted to take some time to talk to you about chickens in the winter. That's Charlie. He's quite a gentleman. Considering that we are entering, or are already in, the very beginning of a grand solar minimum, talking about winter seems like a pretty good idea. I'll just pause when the roosters crow. They're showing off. Your first consideration is to consider winter hardy breeds. The majority of what that means is you want to pick breeds with small combs. The bigger the comb, the harder it is for a bird to keep that tissue warm, and if the comb is really large, then that bird is going to be prone to frostbite. This is more of an issue with roosters than it is with hens, because roosters have bigger combs. Now, I have some birds here with pretty large combs. This is Mr. Belvedere. He's very friendly. He does the mating dance with me pretty much every day. He's a big flirt. Right, Mr. B? Mr. B has been getting a little bit of frostbite. Sorry about the spinny there. And so I've made some minor adjustments to this housing. This is just a little hut. It's just a little box. It's not really particularly adequate chicken housing, but we've been making it work as an extra. And as you'll see, there's some gaps here. I put blankets over these boxes to eliminate drafts. It's less about cold than it is about drafts. Continuous drafts means frostbite. And another consideration is frostbite on the feet. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Heavy feathering obviously helps. That's not so great for the summertime, and frankly, I feel like our birds do very well in the winter, and they suffer a lot more in the heat of summer. Which also bears mentioning that here in the southwest, grand solar minimum, geologically speaking, if you look at the history, this area remains fairly temperate. As you can see, it's nice and sunny. We get about 300 days of sun a year here. We picked a south-facing area for very important reasons. Right now we're averaging mid-50s during the day, and anywhere from 5 to 15 at night. That does change periodically, and if it rains, before it rains, it's actually warmer here at night. So because of these gaps in the housing, I've included these blankets to cover the gaps, and that should really minimize drafts and frostbite. Hi, Mr. B. Mr. Belvedere. Okay, so we'll talk about the other housing as well, if you can just bear with me for a minute, because we have a couple of other tricks that we use. Over there, we have the pullet house. At least that's what we call it. It houses hens, not pullets. It used to house pullets, but they grew up. And this is our main hen house. It's really not necessary to fully insulate or heat your houses if you have the right chicken breeds. It seems like they do a lot better if they're allowed to adapt and adjust. I mean, our birds come out in the snow. It's really never an issue. It does definitely help that it gets sunny here because it dramatically warms up during the day. Our average temperature difference between night and day is 40 to 50 degrees, sometimes as much as 60. So Dracula here has been suffering a little bit of frostbite as well, which is not really the fault of the house, more of where he sits in it, and something that I'm going to remedy. So I don't know if you can see this, but there's a little gap here, and that creates a draft. And the problem is that Dracula has taken to sitting right here at the edge of a nesting box. Hi, Zadie. So his head's right in the nesting box, so he's getting a draft. So I'm just going to put some weather stripping in there and be done with it. Beyond that, we have insulation in the ceiling. We have the cracks largely filled. And the other trick here is actually a couple of light bulbs. We don't even leave this one on at night. But we have a drinker here, and underneath of it is just half of a concrete block with a light bulb inside. The concrete serves as thermal mass, so it absorbs the heat from and releases the heat from the light bulb. It's just a 20-watt light bulb, and it raises the temperature in here a few degrees, and that seems to make a big difference. Keeps the water from freezing. You know, and we're talking, you know, getting down to 5 and 0 at night, and this water does not freeze. Obviously, the birds being in here also helps with the temperature. If you have big issues with frostbitten feet, one thing to consider is your perches. So these are round perches, and that's great. But I read a tip about using flat perches, like using a 2x4. And what happens is when they stand and on the 2x4, they tend to cover their feet better, so they just have better protection from frostbite. So if you're living in a really cold climate, that's something you can consider. Definitely orient your houses towards the sun. That will make a big, big difference. And other than that, you don't have to do a tremendous amount. Like I said, avoid breeds that have large combs. That's going to dramatically reduce frostbite. Keep an eye on the drafts in your chicken houses. And install flat perches if you need to. That's about it. That's really all you got to do. Our birds are happy, healthy, don't seem any less happy during the winter. Well, thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and take care.